very first long walk years ago to inspire everyday people. Maintain a speed of 3 miles per hour. Walk until there's only one of you left.
The only guarantee you have as a human being is that you are going to die.
Personally, I can't stop thinking about all that money.
I don't have much to lose. I have everything to gain, and that's why I'm here.
Who's ready to f***ing win?
Second warning. Third warning.
There's one winner and no finish line.
The Long Walk is Stephen King's 7th published book and 6th novel, released under the pseudonym Richard Bachman in July 1979 and later collected in the Bachman Books in 1985. Although it arrived after Carrie in publication order, it was the first novel King actually wrote, begun in 1966 during his freshman year at the University of Maine. In terms of writing chronology, The Long Walk comes first, with Carrie second. That origin matters. The book reads like an early stripped-down thought experiment about obedience, spectacle, and endurance that King would keep revisiting across his career. The story unfolds in an alternate United States signposted by precise but unsettling details. An April 31st, 51 states, popular Mechanix at the newsstands, and a past German air-blitz of the American East Coast, implying an authoritarian militarized government. The public face of this order is the Major, who presides over a nationally celebrated endurance contest held every year on May 1st. 100 boys aged 16 to 19 begin walking together and are required to maintain a minimum speed of 4 miles per hour. The walk does not stop for weather, bodies on the road, or any other circumstance. As one character dryly notes, it stops once each year, when only one boy remains alive. The last survivor receives the prize, defined as anything he wants for the rest of his life, plus a substantial unspecified sum of money. Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're breaking down The Long Walk, exploring the novel, the characters, the film, and the differences between the book and movie. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification icon to stay up to date on all the latest content, and click the like button to help appease the algorithm gods. Also, if you'd like to make a suggestion on what you want me to cover next, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below.
You boys are the answer. The Long Walk is the answer.
Entry into The Long Walk is both competitive and public. Each year, thousands apply, submitting to tests and writing an essay explaining why they're qualified. A televised lottery draws 200 names, 100 prime walkers and 100 backups, though this status is withheld at the time of drawing. There are multiple windows to withdraw between selection and the start, and when a prime withdraws, the next backup advances in the order that they are drawn. Final notifications identifying who is prime and who is backup go out the day before the walk. On the morning of May 1st, soldiers check the entrance in and issue canteens and food supplies. The Major greets them, assigns numbers 1 through 100 in alphabetical order by last name, and each boy tapes a number placard to his clothing. From that point forward, soldiers address them only by number. At exactly 9 AM, the Major signals to start. The route is fixed in broad strokes and specific in texture. Textual breadcrumbs place the starting point, most plausibly in Hamlin, Maine. The column moves south along US Route 1 from the US-Canada border through Limestone, Caribou, Jefferson, the 100-mile mark, Old Town, Augusta, Lewiston, Porterville, Freeport nearest Garrity's hometown of Pownell, Portland and South Portland, then Kittery across New Hampshire and on to Danvers, Massachusetts. By the time the narrative closes, the boys have covered roughly 360 miles. This geography matters because the walk is as much a national spectacle as it is a death march. Towns gather to cheer, observe, and cheer, but they are forbidden to assist. Mechanically, the rules are explicit and technologically enforced. Each walker begins with a 120-second grace timer. The half-tracks that shadow the column carry small radar dishes mounted front and rear, which measure each walker's speed to the 4th decimal place. Soldiers can display an individual's remaining grace time on a stainless steel pocket chronometer. If a walker's forward speed drops below 4.0000 miles per hour, his 120-second buffer begins to count down. At 90 seconds remaining, he receives the first warning, at 60, a second, at 30, a third. If the timer reaches 0, he is ticketed. A euphemism the event quickly renders literal, as soldiers execute the boy with Army-type heavy-caliber carbines firing gas-tipped slugs. A walker can erase one warning by walking a full hour without receiving another, which resets the timer upward to the next threshold, from 30 to 60, from 60 to 90, from 90 to 120. Violations such as impeding another walker or turning to walk in the wrong direction trigger penalty warnings that immediately set the timer to the relevant threshold, or, for serious infractions, to 0. Certain acts, leaving the road, attacking a soldier, or a half-track, result in immediate ticketing without recourse to warnings. Allowances and prohibitions define the everyday texture of the march. Walkers may carry anything they choose, provided it's not used to interfere with others or the state's apparatus. Food concentrates are issued once per day. They may talk, encourage, and even assist one another, but only while maintaining the minimum speed. Spectators are barred from offering any aid. Attempts to intervene draw sanctions. In one case, a mother repeatedly tries to remove her son and is nearly shot before local police interpose themselves. In another, a man who distributes watermelon is arrested and removed, his ultimate fate left unstated. The bureaucracy extends even to practical advice. Each walker receives a booklet of hints and rules that are mundane in tone but crucial in effect. Hint 3 warns against wearing sneakers because they blister quickly on a long walk. Hint 6 advises slow and easy pacing. Rule 8 forbids interference with other walkers. Hint 10 counsels saving one's breath and avoiding smoking. Hint 12, though not spelled out verbatim, effectively recommends white athletic socks. And Hint 13 urges energy conservation. Together, these strictures codify a survival logic that is physical, tactical, and compliant. The Major's presence and the state apparatus bind the spectacle together. He inaugurates the event, reappears at intervals, and personifies a system that is both ceremonial and lethal, precise timing, clear thresholds, visible consequences. The half-tracks function as mobile gallows, their computers and chronometers translating the human body into numbers that decide life and death. The clarity of the rulebook is not an act of kindness, but a design choice. Ambiguity would threaten the spectacle. Precision preserves it. The live reality for the boys is an escalating convergence of bodily degradation and psychological strain. The enforced pace and sleeplessness produce blisters, dehydration, cramping, and systemic fatigue that the hour reset mechanic can delay but never undo. At the same time, fear, anxiety, and the monotony of relentless movement erode judgment and resilience.
You don't think about making it to the end, just making it to the next moment.
Stephen King builds the long walk around a handful of boys who become the novel's nervous system, each a different answer to the same question. How long can a person keep moving when movement is the only thing keeping him alive? Raymond Ray Garrity is the protagonist, the lens and the litmus test. A 16-year-old from Maine, the only home state entrant, lifted early by local adoration and the spectacle of the send-off. The text marks him immediately as physically capable, but emotionally unarmored. A tall, well-built boy wearing a faded army fatigue jacket, and then undercuts any sense of swagger with the reality of dread. He felt suddenly, terribly afraid. That tension, able-bodied, frightened mind defines him. He tries to meet the crowd's energy and can't quite do it. Garrity tried to smile and couldn't. On the line between hope and panic, he lives for pages, occupied with his own confusion of anticipation and fear, until the ritual finally sweeps him along. Suddenly, his anticipation was greater than his fear, and he wanted to get going. As the miles grind on, Garrity's arc is about how empathy survives attrition. He gravitates to those who make sense of the madness, McFree's ruthless honesty, Baker's quiet decency, and he's mesmerized by Stebbins' implacable efficiency. He bonds, he consoles, he falters, and he learns the arithmetic of survival. Compassion has a cost measured in seconds. The crowd's early adoration turns to a blur. The walk reduces everyone to pace and pulse. If Garrity tries to keep caring, Peter Pete McFreeze refuses to keep lying. The book introduces him with the blunt physical note everyone notices first. He had a bad scar along one cheek. Later, in the wet and the dark, it becomes a white slash in the rainy gloom, but Garrity's eye also registers confidence. To Garrity, Peter McFreeze looked awesomely fit. McFreeze's honesty is exactly the kind found in a boy too smart to be comforted. You're scared. So am I, he says. And the confession that follows. I feel jumpy. That's the worst, is the novel's matter-of-fact shrug at terror. He is Garrity's foil and conscience. Sardonic, volatile, unexpectedly gentle. He invents the Musketeers, himself, Garrity, Baker, Olsen, Harkness, Abraham, Pearson, not as a delusion of safety, but as an agreement to stay human while it's still possible. He needles Barkovich because the boy is wickedly cruel to others and saves Garrity more than once, literally slapping him back to pace. Art Baker is the ballast, warm, decent, unshowy, and King paints him with gentle economy. His introduction is soft-spoken. I'm Art Baker, he says, with a very slight southern accent, but his movement is all quiet efficiency. Baker ambled along, moving in a kind of knee-bent shuffle that somehow always eats the ground. He carries himself with a calm that looks like leisure from the roadside. He swung his coat idly, sometimes whistled a low snatch of some tune, and Garrity, watching, misreads that serenity as endless reserve. Garrity thought he looked like he could go on forever. Baker's small habits reveal the man. He rations comfort and calories with the same practical mind. Baker had his vial of olives, real olives, and was popping them into his mouth. And he talks about poverty without shame. You might be if you grew up on potato soup and collards. Side meat only when your daddy could afford the ammunition. The text even frames his face with unusual tenderness. In the fading daylight, Baker's face was soft and young and beautiful. He is kindness without performance, and the group steadies around him. Hank Olsen is a cautionary curve everyone rides if they don't catch themselves. Swagger into denial, into panic, into ruin. He opens like a carnival barker, more lambs to the slaughter. Hank Olsen's the name, walking is my game, and plays to the crowd with a showman's grin. As noted in the passage, Olsen grinned too wide. When the rules start chewing through his buffer, the patter breaks and the voice cracks. They can't do this, he says, and King writes the pivot in one clean line. There was hysteria in Olsen's voice. Stebbins notes him as proof that the mind can command a wrecked body. Olsen lurches on long after he should be down because the alternative is a bullet, and he cannot make himself stop. Gary Barkovich is the walk's sanctioned cruelty in teenage form, the lightning rod for the group's anger, and the mirror they hate to admit they recognize. He performs antagonism with relish, saying, I'll dance on your goddamn grave, and when he gets a rise out of someone, he savors it. He speaks the walk's grim thesis out loud. You're all dead, you just don't know it, and the performative edge of his focus routine. He pressed his thumb against the end of his rather sharp nose, then stared with his hooded dark brown eyes and said it again. Focus is a boy's attempt to ritualize fear into control. You have to have a plan, he announces, as if survival is a spreadsheet. He goads one of the boys' cold rank into a fatal charge, and the group brands him as a murderer. McFreeze's contempt coalesces into something near hatred, and yet later, Barkovich admits he wishes he had friends and doesn't know how to be anything but what he is. Stebbins is design masquerading as detachment. Visually, the book plants him in your mind with a single, odd, unforgettable frame. Skinny and blonde, wearing purple pants and a blue chambray shirt under an old green zip sweater. And socially, it sets him half a step outside the group, with a passage noting he doesn't say much. Early roadside images keep isolating him, alone, eating, watching from the edges, until endurance itself becomes his definition. After Scram's fall, Stebbins looks engineered not to break. His even pace and flat affect make him the favorite. He dispenses cryptic advice and retracts it, pulls close and pushes away because his whole presence is a psychological device. Near the end, he tells Garrity the truth. He is the Major's illegitimate son, one of many, and he was set up as the Walk's rabbit, the target the pack will chase because someone is always a few yards ahead. It reframes everything, not least the cold hunger under his stillness. He simply wants a father's recognition. Finally, the Major isn't a man so much as an institution with a handshake. King gives you the image you need and repeats it until you can see him in your sleep. A tall, straight man with a deep desert tan, wearing reflector sunglasses, a single, indifferent specular eye. The sand brown belt perfectly aligned, the uniform immaculate. Garrity remembers the smiling, mustachioed face of the Major, and the text even assigns him a sense. Up close he smelled, overpowering. He presides at the start line with ceremony, numbers assigned, rules recited, the pistol that starts the clock, and throughout the march he reappears in a choreographed motorcade, nodding, checking a stopwatch, offering a crisp platitude, "Give them hell, boys," while the half-tracks in their rifles do the irreversible work behind him. What matters is that he never changes. He is the pageant master of state violence. His arc is flat because the system he embodies is perfected for its purpose. At the end, he steps in to claim the narrative. Congratulations for the sole survivor. And Garrity's body supplies the only deviation. He runs away. The Major stays framed exactly as he began. Paternal, orderly, indifferent. The smiling mask a country wears when it's decided to execute the next generation.
For some, your heart will stop. For others, your brain. And the blood will flow suddenly.
Stephen King's The Long Walk and Francis Lawrence's film walk the same road. Lawrence, working from a J.T. Molnar script, delivers a mostly faithful adaptation with some deviations. Same core, same moral bite, but with central characters tuned to be more immediately likable and an ending that's a touch less nihilistic. Different mediums, same nightmare, just framed through different lenses. Crucially, Lawrence front-loads the premise. Where King lets the rules emerge gradually, only really crystallizing 3/4 in, the movie opens with clear exposition explaining what exactly the Long Walk is. Either way, the machine is the same. In the book, 100 teenagers set out. In the film, it's 50. They walk until they can't, then they're shot. The last one upright wins. The film tweaks the pace requirement from the novel's 4 miles per hour to a more camera-friendly 3 miles per hour. Sensible since 4 miles per hour sits a whisker shy of a jog. Both versions are set in Maine, but only the novel uses a recognizable map. The movie, shot in Canada, nods to Freeport in dialogue, though what's on screen isn't the real town. The Major shifts from presence to personality. On the page, he's a looming institution, rules in human form. In the film, he's far more visible, making the regime's frontman less an abstraction and more a daily disquieting companion. The principal characters carry over, but their calibrations change. Ray Garrity is rougher in the novel, flawed, impulsive, and capable of manipulative choices. King gives him a girlfriend called Jan, and thorny flashbacks in which Ray leverages the walk to pressure her into sex, an unflattering window into a scared boy trying to feel powerful. The film deletes the girlfriend entirely and replaces that thread with a different spine, an inspirational father executed by the Major for refusing to bend the knee. On the page, Ray's father is squatted for his politics, dragged off by soldiers to imprisonment or execution. The effect is similar, but the movie externalizes it, making the grievance personal and immediate. In both versions, Ray's bond with his mother remains tender and steady, the last sane tether to a life outside the roadway. McFreeze shifts even more noticeably. In the book, he's bitter, scornful, a razor of honesty that cuts through sentiment, Ray's foil, and eventually his conscience. On screen, he's recast as the heart and soul, the film's emotional core. The bond between Ray and McFreeze exists in both versions, but the movie plays it warmer. Less wary sparring partners, more brothers under fire.
They say you shouldn't make friends on a long walk, but fuck it, I sort of like you three. Even you, Olsen.
The movie plants us in a devastated 1970s America, post-war, authoritarian, and keen on public spectacle as social control. The regime's centerpiece is The Long Walk, a state-run contest promising untold riches and one wish for anything the winner wants. Selection is by lottery from those that voluntarily apply. Among the chosen is Cooper Hoffman's Ray Garrity, delivered to the start line by his anxious mother Ginny, played by Judy Greer, who knows exactly what this honor costs. On the ground, Ray falls in with a cross-section of boys who will become the story's moving cast. The sardonic Peter McFreeze, played by David Johnson, the cocky Hank Olson, Ben Wang, the needling outsider Gary Barkovich, Charlie Plummer, the decent Arthur Art Baker, Tut Newt, the aloof Billy Stebbins, Gary Waring, plus Collie Parker, Joshua Odjick, Richard Harkness, Jordan Gonzalez, and Thomas Curley, Roman Griffin Davis. They're addressed by the Major, played by Mark Hamill, Master of Ceremonies and Enforcer-in-Chief, who lays out the rules with bureaucratic clarity. Maintain 3 miles per hour, collect 3 warnings and you're given your ticket, and the last boy standing wins the prize. He even sells a philosophy with it. The walk exists to inspire and motivate a lazy nation. The contest begins, and soldiers in armored vehicles follow as the boys settle into pace and nervous camaraderie, talking about home, about what they'd wish for if they survive, and about how long they think they can last. Reality arrives quickly in the form of Curly. A savage Charlie horse drops his speed. Warnings stack, and despite Ray and Peter trying to haul him through the pain, Curly collapses, sobbing that it's not fair, and is shot in the head. The walk doesn't pause, and as another boy dies mid-stride from a seizure, the line moves on. Isolation turns Barkovich poisonous. Frozen out by the others, he targets a walker named Rank, goading him into throwing a punch. Rank stumbles, slips below pace, and is gunned down. As a result, the column brands Barkovich a pariah, and Peter says what everyone thinks. He's a killer, and the group steers clear of him. Practical problems mount. The boys hit the predictable wall of hunger, dehydration, and biology. Ray shares rations with Hank after he drops one, and another walker, suffering from diarrhea, is killed after a third warning. As night closes in, Peter keeps Ray awake with talk of home, because Ray's already on 3 warnings and must grind out 3 full hours at pace to clear them. Exhausted and paranoid, Ray snaps at Peter, accusing him of waiting him out for the win. The route pitches up a hill, rhythm shatters, boys fall behind, and the rifles do their work. At the summit, the adrenaline fades and Ray apologizes. Morning brings attrition and milestones. Harkness, his ankle twisted on the climb, can't hold speed and is executed before the group passes 100 miles. Another boy, desperate and done, breaks for a building and is shot before the door, and hatred for both the Major and the regime congeals. The boys then spit out fantasies of what they'd wish for if they win. Then the fantasies turn into fury, and a chant rolls down the line cursing both the long walk and the Major, but the soldiers don't flinch and the column keeps moving. Day 3 raises the stakes on bodily limits and motives. Art nearly dies after stopping for a quick dump, warnings stack, and he only just escapes the bullet. Ray and Peter finally speak honestly about why they're here. For Ray, it's personal. The Major executed his father, William, for refusing to parrot the regime's doctrine or switch allegiances. Ray's wish is simple and lethal, a gun to kill the Major. Peter pushes back, describing his own childhood, an abusive uncle, no knowledge of his birth parents, and a different wish. Change the country and help others, so no one else lives like he did. When they pass a family of 3 at the roadside, Ray sees ghouls waiting for blood, while Peter notes they are ordinary people, frightened and uncertain, like the boys themselves. Before the 200-mile mark, the culling continues. A few boys are shot trying to escape or reach the soldiers. By evening, Hank Olsen is delirious. He turns and walks towards the soldiers and they shoot him in the gut, leaving him to bleed out. A message to everyone still upright about what examples look like in the system. The line then tightens, the pace halts, and the road keeps claiming lives. Day 4 hits hard. Collie Parker reveals to the group that Hank Olsen was the only one of them that was actually married, and that simple fact pulls the boys into a pact. Whoever wins will use their money to support Hank's wife. On the other side of the ledger is Gary Barkovich. Isolated since Rank's death, he's finally guilty enough to beg Ray for a place back in the fold. Ray agrees, extending the thinnest branch of forgiveness, only for Barkovich to fall back and stab himself in the throat moments later. The walk doesn't need bullets every single time. Sometimes shame and the first chance at acceptance and brotherhood does the job. At day 5, the line is nearing 300 miles and the field is down to 5. Ray, Peter McFreeze, Art Baker, Stebbins, and Parker. They push through another town when the sole of one of Ray's shoes collapses. With his feet already raw and bloodied, he ditches his shoes altogether and walks barefoot. In the crowd he spots his mother Ginny, wrecked by what she's seeing. Ray runs to her, blurting apologies for ever entering, and for a second the road's spell almost breaks, until Peter drags him back to pace before the rifles close the distance. Mercy and momentum can't coexist here. Past the 300-mile mark, Parker finally snaps. He charges a soldier, wrestles away a rifle, kills one, and is shot by another. But before the soldiers deliver the finishing round, Parker turns the gun on himself. Art's nose then erupts into bleeding that won't stop, and Stebbins gives the diagnosis straight: internal hemorrhaging. Ray and Peter carry him as long as they can, but Art accepts the end, asks them not to watch, and they let him go to his ticket. Now it's Ray, Peter, and Stebbins crossing a bridge, with Stebbins faltering at last. He opens the one door he's kept shut. He's one of the Major's many illegitimate sons, and his wish was simple: to be invited into his father's home for a meal. But knowing he was out of time, he says goodbye, turns back, and walks to his death. With only Ray and Peter remaining, they enter another town with crowds waiting to see who lives. Peter tries to yield, slowing so Ray can take it, but Ray refuses and holds Peter up and forces him on. Seconds later, Ray makes a choice himself without Peter noticing. He stops, stands there, and takes 3 shots so that Peter wins. The ceremony moves in. The Major arrives to congratulate Peter, all smooth edges and state-approved warmth. And it's here that Peter claims Ray's wish for a gun and aims it at the man who runs the machine. The Major stays calm, talking him down like it's just another parade stop. Peter then pulls the trigger, executing the Major, and then keeps walking alone in the dark, rainy road. There's no speech, no victory lap.
This moment, it matters, man.
You're right. Every moment matters, especially at the end.
While Stephen King's The Long Walk and Francis Lawrence's Adaptation tread along the same road, they don't arrive at the same place, and that last mile changes the story's meaning. The novel's ending is an existential collapse. The film's is a grim, cathartic volley. The film remains faithful to the core design: boys, road, rules, death, yet the closing choices reweight the themes, recast key fates, and tilt the moral center of gravity from hollow survival to retaliatory action. Let's start with the biggest divergence: who actually wins. In the book, Ray Garrity is the last boy standing. He and Peter McFreeze reach the endgame. McFreeze keeps the promise he made at the start. When he's done, he'll sit down. And he does, accepting the bullet. Ray wins, but the word means nothing. Delirious and hallucinating, he rejects the pageant outright, ignores the Major and the prize, and keeps moving toward a mysterious dark figure only he can see. It's an ending that drains victory of content and leaves the final image suspended in dread. The film reverses the last decision and reassigns the crown. Ray gives the win away, an act of friendship that costs him his life. McFreeze spends the war keeping Ray alive and arguing for a nobler wish, then shatters when Ray is killed and uses the wish to shoot the Major. In King's text, after McFreeze is gone, Stebbins, long presumed to be the machine's perfect product, faces Ray and dies in horror, clearing the road for a victory Ray cannot absorb. In Lawrence's version, Stebbins exits earlier, undone by illness and resignation, and he allows himself to be shot before the last stretch. The novel's finale is Ray versus the Void. The film's is Ray versus McFreeze, and then McFreeze versus the system. This rebalancing ripples through the supporting cast. Arthur Baker, a minor figure on the page, is expanded on screen and effectively given a McFreeze-like exit, fading late and dying with dignity, so that the film concentrates more of its emotional current in the final run. Gary Barkovich tracks closely in both mediums, the bully whose weaponized cruelty curdles him to self-destruction, softening just long enough for the collapse to hurt. The brash Doom spark is handled differently. In the film, it's Hank Olson. In the book, the brash function belongs to Collie Parker, while Hank exists but plays smaller. Stebbins remains who he needs to be in both versions, the Major's illegitimate son and the rabbit. Even the crowds and staging nudge the tone. In the book's Freeport sequence, Ray passes both his mother and his girlfriend Jan, a public crucible where family and spectacle press together. In the film, there's only his mother, relieved and fearful, tightening the frame around an intimate bond rather than a national audience. None of these alterations blunt the story's core. This is less a contest than a theatre of obedience, and every death is a person's end, not a scoreboard tick. The film keeps the humanity in focus just as the book does. Curly's horrified pleas, Barkovich's somber, self-inflicted end, Parker's defiant last moments, each is staged as an individual calamity. That's the point. King wrote the original with Vietnam in the rear view. The adaptation's world-building hints at civil fracture and authoritarian crackdown. Different historical dressing, same diagnosis. The state turns suffering into ceremony, which leaves the question of the ending's meaning. The novel's answer is an abyss. After 300 miles and 99 deaths, survival is spiritually empty. The human mind, asked to endure the unendurable, simply walks past the prize and into nothing. The film's answer is bleaker in another register, a cathartic shot instead of an existential shrug. McFreeze's choice to kill the Major honors Ray, his father, and every boy that's ever died in the Long Walk. The victory is less hollow than King's, yet the system looks perfectly capable of continuing, same as it ever was. The book closes on the idea that there is no prize worth what it costs. The film closes on the recognition that revenge can land and still change nothing important. In both, the last survivor is broken, by miles, by fear, and by the spiritual toll of watching their friends drop. The novel leaves Ray walking toward a ghost. The film leaves Pete walking away from a corpse. Either way, the road doesn't stop.
Keep walking. That's right. We out here in the sunshine, just having fun.
Gonna be all right, okay?
She's loosening now.
Come on, Curly, come on!
Warning, number 7. Third warning.
It ain't fucking fair!
I look at each and every one of you, and I see hope.